Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, hoping you're enjoying your weekend. Later, why some land is taxed so much lower than most pay because of a loophole in the law. Fayette County's PVA David O'Neill will be joining us later. But first, there will be some history made in Kentucky next week. Republicans will hold a presidential caucus. They'll have caucuses across the state. Kentucky has long been a primary state, and that contest has been held in May, often too late to have any influence in the final outcome. This year, Senator Rand Paul forked over the money and convinced Republican leaders in the state to hold a caucus. That was his way of getting around a state law that forbids a candidate from appearing on a primary ballot for two different offices. At that time, Paul was running for president and also for re-election to his Senate seat. After a poor finish in New Hampshire, Paul dropped his bid for the White House, but the Kentucky caucus goes on, and so does his re-election bid. The caucus is set for next Saturday. There are lots of questions from how voters will go about it all to where do you go to vote. The executive director of the Republican Party of Kentucky is Mike Biagi, and he joins us now with some answers. A little Caucus 101. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it very much.
Sure. Thanks, Bill.
Well, ready or not, here we are. Kentucky doesn't do these caucuses, you know, we've had a primary in Kentucky for years and years. How do you think this is going to go Saturday?
Well, I think there's a lot of energy among local county parties especially to be doing this, to use it as an opportunity to contact voters. And we're giving, as you said, voters the opportunity to be relevant in the presidential nomination in a way that no one can really remember us doing, because we've always had that late May primary after the nomination's been sewn up. By doing this on Saturday, March 5th, a full 2.5 months earlier, we're doing it at a time when candidates are still competing for votes, still need to win more states and more delegates to secure their nomination. So we're seeing a much more competitive environment for the race for the Republican nomination here in Kentucky.
Have you reached out to other states where caucuses have been held just to see what their experience is like?
I did. Early on, very shortly after the governing body of our state party approved this caucus, I reached out to see what they do and got some ideas, but really we wanted to make the Kentucky caucus feel more similar to what voters are used to here in an election. So, for example, when a voter shows up to the caucus, they will show identification, sign in, receive a ballot, cast their vote by secret ballot, and they can be on their way. So that will feel very similar to what they're used to. You know, one of the differences is that there will be a campaigning area where presidential campaigns can send a representative to distribute literature or answer questions. There won't be any speeches, but there is that kind of campaign feel separate from the private voting area.
Can there be kind of this, buttonholing where you pull somebody over and say, really, you need to be for this person?
I don't think there'll be as much of that, but again, we didn't want to go quite the way other caucus states do it, so we wanted that, Kentuckians, I think, are used to that kind of private ballot, and we'll stick with that.
But this is a party event. It is not regulated by state government. It is not overseen by the State Board of Elections. And so in that way, it is different, right?
It definitely is. Yeah, under state law, the party has the authority to conduct a caucus and do it according to its rules. And we wanted to set this up to have a wide window of opportunity from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. anytime that a voter can come to their caucus location. And the county parties decided whether or not they wanted to have a location in their county or do something more regionally. And I'm really pleased that 111 out of 120 counties, they decided they wanted to have a caucus location, at least one location, in their county. So I think that's really good participation, and there's a lot of energy out there among the county parties to do this.
What happens in those counties where they do not have a caucus?
Sure, they have teamed up with a regional partner, an adjacent county, to have it there. And voters in those locations also had the opportunity through about a week ago to apply by absentee if they didn't have a caucus location in their county.
Mike, with the primary, people know their voting precinct, they know it well, and it's likely to be somewhere close to their neighborhood. Where will people go to caucus, and how do they know where they will go?
Right. Aside from the date, the location will be the biggest difference for voters. And the best way for a Republican voter to find out where they can caucus on March 5th is to visit the Republican Party of Kentucky's website, rpk.org, and there's a link, a search tool for any voter to search their name and birth date and find where they are assigned to vote, because they're only allowed to go to one location, the one where they've been assigned, based on the address where they're registered to vote with their county clerk. So that caucus location can be found online. Most local newspapers will also report it as well, and in most counties there's only one caucus location. So if you were to live, say, in Jessamine County, you've got one location and it'll probably be in your paper. But here in Fayette County, there are 4 locations, and each voter can only go to one of them, so they ought to visit our website and find their assigned caucus location.
Now, okay, you said they can only go to one. Now, how, without the state government overseeing the elections and that sort of thing, how do you know they didn't go to another caucus meeting or go to another
Good
county?
question. Right, well, we have voter rolls, voter rosters of all the Republican voters who are allowed to participate at any one location. And again, that will feel familiar when voters sign into that roster. So the caucus officials, which are volunteers from the local Republican Party, have been trained on how they will distribute ballots, how they will make sure that each person only gets one ballot. And then, of course, a voter can only sign in at a place where they're listed to be able to vote.
How will the results be reported on that day? Is it, will you know, as in some of these caucuses we've watched here in the early going, the results kind of came in while they were underway? Will it be that way here, or will you wait until
It'll be a little different. You know, under the rules passed by the state party for the caucus, no results can be reported until after 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The results will come county by county to the state party when we, sometime after 7 p.m., and hopefully not too late after. But when we have confidence in the results, we will be releasing those out to the media and the public on our website all at once.
You will get them before 7 o'clock, and so you could.
I certainly hope to. Yes, I mean, because again, between 10 and 4 p.m. is when the polls are, the caucuses are open, and you know, county parties will start counting votes after that. That will be done at caucus locations and in full view and transparency of any campaign representatives that have been sent by presidential campaigns to help witness that. So we have that transparency in place. Then the county parties will report to RPK what the results were as we compile them, and we'll report sometime after 7 p.m. Eastern a county by county result as well as a statewide total among the candidates.
Are these paper ballots and a hand count?
Pardon me?
Are they paper ballots and a hand count?
Well, they're all paper ballot. Some county parties will count by hand, but larger counties, such as Fayette County, because of the volume, will use optical scanners to scan and count ballots.
Do you get indications that, and we have Super Tuesday coming up Tuesday, and that is big with the so-called SEC primary, a lot of southern states, a lot of interest in those elections, but that Kentucky may see candidates in the state between Super Tuesday and Saturday?
I really hope so, and I'm optimistic right now. You know, I've talked to these presidential campaigns, all the ones that are still in the race, and they are basically taking it almost a few days at a time because they just finished South Carolina and Nevada. Now they're on to Super Tuesday, so they're really can't plan too far in advance, but they are very interested in coming to Kentucky. They're already organizing in Kentucky. We've had TV ads, radio ads, web ads, as well as automated calls to voters to try to identify their supporters and turn them out to vote. All that happening in the past couple of weeks, and I'm really hopeful that that follows up with some visits by presidential candidates.
As early as this was, it comes too late for Rand Paul. He had certainly hoped that you know, he would do better in the early going and would be able maybe to claim Kentucky as a win. His campaign goes on for a re-election to the U.S. Senate. Is he now supporting the caucus effort moving forward? I mean, he essentially paid for most of it, right?
He did. He did raise the money to pay for the caucus so that it wouldn't impact the other things the state party does for our candidates around the state. And, you know, Kentucky Republicans are really proud of Senator Paul for making the effort. Running for president is hard. He did a great job of taking his message of liberty and limited government and fiscal responsibility all around the country. And I think Kentucky is really fortunate to have 2 U.S. senators that have real national influence. And the state party was glad to support Senator Paul in giving him the opportunity to run for president. Now that he's not doing that anymore, you know, it's still, we're sort of good to have this caucus because of the relevance that we talked about, the relevance we have by doing this 2.5 months earlier. Senator Paul continues to support the caucus. He will vote in the caucus. And we continue to see that this could be a really good thing, both to make Kentucky Republicans relevant and also just for kind of organizing and building up county parties.
It was said that it was key when Kentucky moved to an apportioned result here. That is, that you can get some delegates even if you are not the winner of the caucus. Was that an important move to attract interest? It
is, and actually that had been allowed before. The main difference is that we lowered the threshold to just 5% to get some number of our delegates. You know, Kentucky has 46 Republican delegates to the National Convention, and as you said, those will be assigned proportionally to candidates based on the results of the caucus. And, you know, we had 11 candidates who originally filed for the caucus, and part of the appeal, I think, was that they knew they could come and compete here by simply getting a 5% minimum threshold. Not all of them are still in it, of course, but even after Super Tuesday, it'll still be competitive on Saturday, March 5th.
Now, are these candidates who have suspended their campaigns still going to be on that ballot?
They will. Our ballots have been printed, and those will be final. However, voters will be notified with signs at caucus locations about which candidates are no longer running in the race.
So there's still a possibility that somebody would make maybe a favorite son statement and support Rand Paul in Kentucky, right?
They're certainly they're allowed to do that. I expect most voters will be voting for people who are still active in the race.
Given the experience of putting this together and how it has all gone, of course, again, you were fueled by the money that Senator Paul raised to make this happen. But would you think it is likely that Kentucky Republicans will stick with this caucus going forward, or is it likely we return to a primary in 4 years?
You know, I really don't know. That will be a decision made probably not soon, probably getting closer to 2020, based on, you know, how they feel about how it went this year, whether or not it's worth doing again, and the 300-member governing body of leaders from around the state will make that decision much closer to the following presidential race.
Do you have plans to get together and talk about how it went when it's over?
I'm sure we will. You know, we have sort of regular, usually quarterly meetings, and I imagine this will be a topic of conversation because right now we're so busy just planning for it and executing it. You know, we haven't gotten to be reflective on it yet, but I'm sure we will, and we'll see how it goes.
Mike, let's fast forward to Saturday morning. Here is Kentucky in the spotlight with a presidential Republican caucus going on, Republican voters only. And let's just lay out the rules for voters who may be out there, may be confused, where they can get information, what they need to do next Saturday.
Sure. Well, next Saturday, on Saturday, March 5th, Republican voters will go to county caucus locations any time between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. They will show their identification, sign in, get a ballot, and the one office they'll be voting for is the Republican nominee for president. They'll get to choose their preferred candidate by secret ballot, put it in a ballot box, and they can be on their way. There's also an opportunity at the caucus location to hear from candidate representatives, as well as possibly from the local county party about how to get involved. And in terms of finding your assigned caucus location, maybe check your local newspaper or go to the Republican Party of Kentucky's website, rpk.org, and use our search tool to find out where your location is.
Do you think Kentucky Republicans will enjoy this caucus? The political activists certainly will, right?
Yeah, well, you know, it's certainly different, and I hope folks maybe appreciate that they're given the opportunity to be relevant, to have a voice at a time that candidates are still competing for votes, as opposed to our usual May primary when we're frankly usually not relevant because the race has already been decided. So this is a good opportunity for voters to really have an influence.
Mike Biagi is the executive director of the Kentucky Republican Party. He's been active in state politics for many years, and we thank you for coming. Appreciate it very much, and we'll see how it all goes next Saturday. Now, coming next on Kentucky Newsmakers here on WKYT, David O'Neill is the Fayette County PVA. He'll explain a little bit about some of these tax bills that are lower on farmland than on many other parcels of property. Back in just a moment. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers from WKYT. It was an eye-opening investigation by the Lexington Herald-Leader. Reporters John Cheeves and Linda Blackford revealed that Fayette County homes on 10 acres or more of land have automatically long qualified for tax breaks intended for working farms. It also shows that property that is under development, including shopping centers and luxury apartments, have also at times been getting a farmland tax break that has slashed their tax bills. It has applied to 718 working farms, but a total of almost 2,500 properties get a farm tax break, while the burden, of course, has to be then shifted to people who own homes and smaller parcels of land. The piece of investigative journalism is spurring immediate action, with the property valuation administrator saying even his eyes have been opened by this, and he is now calling for changes. Fayette County PVA David O'Neill, the property valuation administrator, is joining us today. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill, for coming in. Appreciate it. A lot of people have been taken aback this week by learning that you know, they're paying maybe full tax rates on their home or land, but others are able to call their place a farm when it is not. This has reduced the taxable value by $183 million. Fayette County Public Schools getting $1.4 million less than they would if these properties were not reduced because they're called farmland. A large loophole, isn't it?
There is a large loophole, but just to clarify, the commercial properties, the apartments and things of that nature, there's nothing like that. This is all vacant land that has not yet been developed that we're talking about on the potential development side. So the 10-acre tracts with the luxury homes, yes, that's a fact. If they're 10 acres or more, they are receiving the agriculture values, but that's not in place on any commercial property.
Once something has been changed to commercial, it is then reassessed
that's right.
Immediately. Is that automatic?
We do that every January the 1st. That's when all property, regardless of whether it's agriculture or not, is reassessed for value and reassessed based on what its use is. And the development land, for example, using the Summit on January 1st, 2015, it was still a farm, still receiving ag values. January 1st, 2016, construction is now beginning, and that moves on to the tax roll at full value.
So even if it is declared and there is a plan in place, knowing full well that it is going to be a commercial piece of property eventually, it still qualifies until such time as the construction starts?
Not necessarily. If everything is in place, if all the zoning necessary is in place, a development plan has been approved, the land has been platted appropriately, if all of that has been done and it is what I would refer to as shovel ready, they can take out a building permit and move forward when they're ready to on January 1st or after, then that would go on the tax roll.
So there was a significant jump out there at that location?
At that location, that's right. It would, for 2015, it was assessed at ag values. For 2016, it will go on for, I believe it's $13 million.
Let's talk about this. Okay, by how much does ag value reduce the tax liability?
Drastically, and it's based on soil quality and soil classifications that are distributed by the Department of Revenue through guidelines, and it's about $500 an acre versus land that may sell for $8,000 to $10,000 an acre.
And the idea behind the original legislation that created this was to do what?
The original idea is that property, for the most part, fair cash value is based on what property is able to generate in revenue. But revenue has never been able to sustain fair cash value for a farm. So if the farmers had to pay the full tax burden for what they could get for the farm if they sold it to a developer, that they would never be able to stay in business like that. So the original intent was to preserve the farmland, allow the farmer to stay on it, continue operating as a farm, even though that would not be the highest and best use for the land.
So how did this come to be applied to people who have a nice house and 10 acres around them?
Well, that's a good question. Over time, the laws have been changed, and the requirements for what it takes to classify a property as an ag value has devolved to the point that the only requirement really remaining in statutes is that it be 10 acres or more. There was previously a requirement that you had to demonstrate ag income through disclosure of your Schedule F form, but that was removed from statute, and it got to the point through precedent in the courts and at the Board of Tax Appeals that really all you needed was to demonstrate capability, that the property be able to generate revenue.
Would you say people were told, and including by realtors and others, that, oh, by the way, this qualifies for farm tax rate?
I don't know. Anecdotally, I think originally I thought that there was probably a lot more than that, but now that I'm getting feedback from various parts of the community, including citizens and realtors, I don't believe that there was as much as that as I would have thought.
So after this revelation is made, and you have taken a look at it now, what is your perspective on what the issue is?
Well, we need change at 3 different levels of government. We need to implement changes in the PVA offices, but we also need the Department of Revenue to issue specific guidelines on what exactly ag use is. And then we need the statutes changed, because right now we have this big loophole where there's even a question about whether or not it should be ag use or ag capability. And most of the PVAs and the Department of Revenue at this point are following the guidelines of if it's capable of producing agricultural related income, then it qualifies. But we need to close that loophole. It should be agriculture use, but we need clear definitions on what that is.
Do you agree that this has shifted the burden to smaller property owners because the government has had to have the resources to run its services.
I suppose to a certain extent, perhaps, but I don't think that it has materially changed tax rates. I think that the $1 million or the $1.5 million that the schools may otherwise have gotten, the schools are able to increase their tax rates every year, and many years they do.
But because the properties are valued higher in town on smaller lots than those who have benefited from this farm tax break, they're the ones who are paying more of the bill, right? The ones on smaller properties.
Yes, but it's also important to remember that the house and the land directly under the house are still taxed at full fair cash value. It's the residual land after you account for the house and the land that's being taxed at a reduced rate.
What triggers a reassessment? Do you know are there some automatic things? There are some who think, you know, if they go add on a sunroom or they add an extra bedroom and there's a permit filed with the city, you'll probably jump on that. And at the same time, then they may go and wonder why things are not done as quickly on these other properties.
You're right. A sale will generate a reassessment, and we will typically take the sale price if it's believed that it's an arm's length transaction, a willing owner, willing buyer. But not all sales are assumed to be arm's length, so it's not always the sale price that becomes the new assessment. Building permits do trigger reassessments in many cases, unless it's something that we don't believe adds value. If it's a sidewalk repair or a new fence, it may not. And then we're required by law to produce a quadrennial review plan, and so most homes are reassessed for value every 4 years.
You have not required an application for agricultural use.
That's right.
In order to consider property to be agricultural, and some have. Jefferson County, for instance, does that.
That's
right?
my understanding, yes.
Yeah, so why not?
Well, because there's no reason to have an application if there's no requirement that agriculture use is taking place. So if you required the application and asked people, what are you using the property for, but then you're not going to require that they do anything other than it be capable of doing it, then I don't know the purpose of an application process.
You have announced that you're going to address this quickly.
Yes.
What are you going to do?
The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at all of the properties that are on 10 or more acres, where once you consider the amount of land that's being devoted to the house, the lawn, the driveways, the garages, the swimming pools, if the remaining land after you take that out does not make up 10 full acres, then it's our opinion that it should not qualify for the reduced values.
Other things you'll be doing?
Other things that we'll be doing is we're going to be asking for a direct legal opinion from the Department of Revenue, clearing up this question of agriculture use versus agriculture capability, because that really does go to the heart of the issue. That matter needs to be clarified. And then I'm hopefully working with legislators to get some legislation passed and shore up these statutes.
And you've indicated you may retroactively go back and look at some of the property values.
Well, we're not going to look to retroactively tax people on previous years, but what we are going to do is the statute says that if you've owned the property for 5 or more years and it's been receiving ag values for 5 or more years and the use changes due to nothing that you've done other than not farming it, that we can't take the ag values now away from you until you sell the property. So we'll be making those changes as the properties sell, but if the property was purchased within the last 5 years, then it doesn't qualify for the grandfathering.
All right, there's going to be a question and answer session coming up on this later in the week as well, and we will ask David O'Neill about that and what he expects to be talking about at that. Back on Kentucky Newsmakers to wrap up in just a moment. Welcome back to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. Extra couple of minutes here with the Fayette County PVA after the revelation by the Lexington Herald Leader this week that some property in Fayette County is being taxed as farmland when it may be having other uses. And David O'Neill is continuing with us. A lot to talk about in all of this and to try to clear up, and you're going to try to do that with a question and answer session on March 3rd. What do you expect to talk about?
Well, this is a complicated issue, and the citizens have a lot of questions, and rightfully so. So I want to give them an opportunity where I will stand there and answer every question that they have, and it's important that we make sure that they're confident that their government is taxing fairly.
You said you anticipate some questions. One of those, to clear up a matter that you spoke of earlier, that the commercial properties once this change is made and something is going on a property, it is being taxed at a commercial rate.
That's right. There is no property in Fayette County where on January the 1st, even a blade of dirt has been turned. If that's the case, then it goes on the tax roll for full fair cash value.
So the fact that you're sitting across from, for instance, over here on Polo Club, across from a Costco and another
Right.
area, and is perfectly capable of seeking a zone change, does not mean that that is not at this point considered farmland.
That's right. The land on the east side of Polo Club across the street from Cabela's and Costco is still zoned for agriculture and is still 10 or more acres, and except for the 9 acres right on the corner that has now been platted out for 2016, and they have started moving dirt to build the townhouses, that is on the tax roll for full fair cash value, but the remainder is still agriculture capable.
Tell us again about the March 3rd meeting. Where will that be?
It's at the Lexington Public Library, the main branch, downtown on Main Street, in the theater on the first floor at 5:30, Thursday, March the 3rd.
You're going to be active on this issue now with the legislature and explaining what has been revealed?
I have already been. I'm talking to several legislators on a daily basis, and I'm hopeful that at least a resolution can be passed during this session that will ask the various parties to get together and bring forward some recommendations.
All right. David O'Neill is the Fayette County PVA. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it very much.
Yes, sir.
And we hope you'll stay with us on WKYT. Of course, we'll have the latest news throughout the day, and we'll see you bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning. Hope you make it a good week ahead.